I still remember the exact moment it began, the text that froze my chest and turned my world upside down. "We need to talk about us," it read. Simple enough, but I felt the weight of every word like a hammer. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering, my mind racing. "Us," I muttered aloud, alone in the quiet of our apartment. I wanted to laugh it off, tell myself I was overreacting, but there was a tightness in my stomach, a gnawing suspicion I couldn't shake. For weeks before that, little things had started gnawing at me. She, Emma, had always been meticulous with her phone, but suddenly it was glued to her hand, always buzzing with notifications she hurriedly silenced when I walked by. Missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Excuses that didn't quite add up. Just work stuff, or "it's nothing, don't worry." I found myself questioning my own perception. Was I being paranoid? But the unease persisted, settling into my chest like a stubborn weight. Then came the subtle shifts in her behavior. How she laughed a little too loudly at messages she quickly hid. How she avoided my gaze when I asked about her day. How she leaned away from me in the quiet moments that used to feel intimate. I tried to convince myself it was stress, fatigue, maybe just a rough patch. But intuition is a cruel thing. It doesn't let you ignore the smallest inconsistencies. And I wasn't ignoring them anymore. It all came to a head that evening. I was cooking dinner, chopping vegetables in a rhythm meant to soothe, when she came in, cheeks flushed from what she called a late meeting. She hugged me casually, but something in her smile felt rehearsed, and I couldn't hold back the question any longer. "Emma Hoosie?" I said it quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. She froze. Her fork clattered against the counter, a sound that echoed louder than any confession. "Who what?" she asked, her voice faltering for the first time. I refuse to call him your partner if you won't tell me the truth," I said, and the words hung between us like smoke. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears, every memory of our life together twisting into suspicion. She looked away, then back, eyes glimmering with guilt. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's complicated." Complicated. That word sliced through me like a knife. My hands trembled, and I realized I was no longer in control of the narrative I had believed in. The life I thought was ours was crumbling piece by piece. I found the first undeniable proof later that night. Her phone, left unattended on the couch, unlocked in a careless moment. Messages full of laughter, inside jokes, plans I wasn't part of, pictures of dinners, weekend trips, and little moments that I had assumed were ours alone, shared with someone else. Someone she now called partner. The word stung. I wanted to close my eyes, to convince myself it wasn't real, but the evidence glared at me in cold, bright pixels. The betrayal wasn't cinematic. It wasn't a grand confrontation or a violent explosion. It was quiet, insidious, a creeping realization that everything I had trusted had been built on selective truths. And yet, despite the pain, part of me ached for understanding, for a reason, for some shred of the Emma I loved. When I finally confronted her, it was with exhaustion, not anger. "Why?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Was I not enough? Her tears were immediate, and in them I saw remorse, confusion, even love, but misplaced, misdirected, fractured. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, words trembling. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't want to lose you entirely, but I fell. And there it was, the raw human truth. Not a villain, not a monster, just a flawed person making terrible choices. And just a man whose love had been misused, who had to choose between clinging to the fragments of what was or stepping away. I walked away that night with the echo of her apologies trailing behind me, the apartment silent, heavier than it had ever been. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I simply let the door close, each step away from her and her lies a reclamation of the dignity I almost forgot I had. It's been months now. The sting of betrayal lingers like a faint scar, sometimes sharp, sometimes dull, but I've learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. I've learned to trust myself, to recognize my worth, to understand that love, when twisted by deception, isn't weakness to endure. It's a lesson to survive. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself replaying the moments, the laughter, the whispered promises, the little touches. But they no longer wound me as they once did. They are memories, not chains. And in that quiet strength, I've found closure. Not the closure of a perfect ending, but the kind that comes from walking away with your integrity intact, with the knowledge that you chose yourself over a lie. I refused to call him her partner. And in that refusal, I discovered something far more important. I refused to let her betrayal define me